10-9. The Union commander only needed a 3 or more on the die for his reinforcements, but failed again. It was his initiative, and he gave orders to a single brigade, and once again my impeccable rolling produced a 1+1. It was enough to move his artillery battery forward again. The Confederates continued to press on their left flank, and orders were issued to 2 brigades. A roll of a 4+1 allowed the attack to continue. 4 infantry and 1 artillery battery advanced. Mixed fortunes in the firing phase. The counter-battery fire was ineffective, but in the firefight on the left, both sides scored hits. The whole of the rebel left flank was forced to recoil, but they did inflict enough damage on the Union line to push back 1 infantry and the battery. 10-10, and yep, you guessed it. Only a roll of 2 or more would have brought on the Union reinforcements. I managed to roll a 1, so they will definitely appear at the start of the next turn, as even I can't roll lower than a bloody 1. The commander issued orders to a single brigade and threw a 5+1. It was more than enough to advance his artillery and infantry forward into line again. The Confederates issued orders to 2 brigades in a desperate attempt to keep up the pressure, and would you believe, rolled a 6+1. This allowed every unit to advance, as well as bring some of the lagging units forward too. In the firing round, 6s began to appear. In the counter-battery fire, both scored hits, as did 3 of the rebel infantry regiments, whereas only a single Union regiment scored a hit. Could this be the chance the Confederate commander was seeking? The men in blue being pushed back, and his own troops in a great position to follow up. 10-11, and the Union 4th Brigade, the Anvil, finally shows its face on the battlefield to the rear of the rebel forces. Had the Confederates' attack plan gone as it should have done, most of the rebel troops now would have been close to across the stream. However, 2 full brigades, though startled to see the enemy appear in their rear, are well placed to meet this new threat. With the Anvil now in place, the Union General orders his large 3rd Brigade to advance. A roll of a 6+1 allows this to happen. The troops advance on the rebel lines. The Confederate General now has to turn his attention to the threat in his rear. He activates 2 brigades and throws a 5+1. This will allow him to turn and face the danger. 2 batteries of artillery unlimber and regiments of infantry swing around. Back on the Confederate left flank, though neither side were activated, the firefight continues. Both sides scoring hits and pushing back their assailants, although also falling back themselves in order to regroup. 10-12. The Union commander activates 4th Brigade, and a 5+1 allows him to move every unit. The infantry advance to form a salient, whilst the cavalry dismount and the battery of artillery unlimber. The rebel commander takes a chance and activates 2 brigades. A 3+1 is just enough for his needs. All the infantry on this flank are now facing the enemy, and a battle line is forming. The rest of 2nd Brigade also managed to turn to face the enemy. On the right flank of the Union 4th Brigade, firing by both sides is disjointed and unsuccessful, both sides being caught unprepared for immediate action. However, on the other flank, the Reb artillery scores a hit at short range on a luckless infantry regiment. It is immediately forced back in a shaken state, hence the yellow disc. The dismounted cavalry troopers are uncomfortably close to the enemy infantry, looking out from the salient. Down the length of the table with the salient on the left, there seems to be a lot of Rebs between it and the hammer. The hammer advances. The rebel left flank, both sides attempt to catch their breath for the next assault. 10-13. Union initiative. With his anvil in trouble, the commander attempts to advance the hammer. A roll of a 2+1 only allows 3 regiments to advance. He moves all 3 regiments in the centre. The rebel commander once again takes a chance and attempts to activate 2 brigades, one in the main assault and the other facing the anvil. He can only move a total of 3 regiments. With the whoops of the rebel yell filling the air, the 2 activated regiments crash into dismounted troopers and artillery battery. In the main attack, a single Reb regiment also charges forward into hand-to-hand combat. Rebel batteries fire into the anvil. This one fails to hit. However, the second does hit and pushes back a Union regiment in a shaken state. The Union forces of the anvil are being forced dangerously close to the table edge. Mixed fortunes in the main attack. 2 Union and a single Rebel unit being pushed back. Back at the anvil, the bitter hand-to-hand fighting is decided, the initial dice rolls. The artillery adds a +2 for facing an attack from the front. Both Rebel infantry gain a +1 for the Rebel yell and win the combat by 1. As the difference is just 1, both Union units fall back and are shaken, whilst the victorious Confederate regiments advance a further 4 centimetres. It appears the anvil is being hammered. The pun was intended. None of the shaken units will be able to remove their markers as the enemy are within 8 centimetres. If a hit a second time with the shaken marker still in place, the unit is destroyed. 10-14. Confederate initiative. The commander wants to keep up the attacks on the salient, but also wants to hold off the Union 3rd Brigade, so takes a chance on activating 2 brigades. He rolls a 3+1. Split equally between the 2 brigades, the rebel yell rings out again and the forces collide. In the main attack, he moves just a single regiment up from the stream to form a solid battle line to face the oncoming Yankees. The Union Commander 2 attempts to activate 2 brigades, the hammer and the anvil. A roll of a 6+1 is just what he needed. Aware his troops are sitting ducks for the Reb artillery, he attempts to break out from the salient using 3 regiments. He uses the remainder to launch an all-out assault on the rebels in front of the creek. Original rolls at the salient. Same again, but this time showing the modifiers. The Union cavalry troopers are swept away, but canister fire drives back 1 rebel regiment. The main Union attack goes in, 3 against 1, the original rolls and modified. The Confederate regiment is pushed back. Back at the salients, 1 rebel battery opened fires on a Union infantry regiment that is already shaken. The roll of 5 spells doom. The Union regiment is routed from the field. The other battery too scores a hit, forcing the regiment to retreat and reducing them to shaken. In the firefight, muskets sing out their regular tune. Honours are roughly even, with both sides pulling back to regroup. The dead pile. The Union will break on losing 1/3 of their units, rounded up, so 20 gives a break point of 7. 10-15. Confederate initiative. 2 brigades are activated with a roll of a 3+1. 2 regiments in each brigade can be activated. The salient 2 infantry regiments charge the guns, whilst 2 regiments push forward to reform the battle line. The Union commander, realising his plan is falling apart, attempts to get his troops moving and activates 2 divisions, a good roll of 5+1. He uses half the pips to charge his 3rd Brigade into the enemy in a desperate attempt to break through to his beleaguered anvil. He also advances on his right flank to keep the enemy busy. 3rd Brigade smash into the rebel line, the unmodified dice roll, and the modified score. The Southerners not only halt the Yankees in their tracks, but throw them back shaken. On the Union right, a firefight ensues. The Union artillery has no effect, and the infantry firefight fails to produce any results. The 2 forces eye each other up, readying their muskets. With the failure of the main attack to break through, attention turns to the rapidly dwindling 4th Brigade and its equally fragmenting salient, the unmodified roll, and then with modifiers added. The artillery battery is destroyed, overrun by 2 infantry regiments. The remainder of the salient erupts in a firefight. The rolls are devastating for the Union. 1 infantry unit is pushed back and a 2nd destroyed by the artillery. The anvil is now reduced to just 2 regiments of infantry, who realise they are now surrounded with little hope of relief. To prevent further bloodshed and pointless waste of life, the Union Brigade commander orders his men to lay down their arms. The dead pile now numbers 4 Union units. Add to this 2 surrendered, and the Union is just 1 away from defeat. Intermixed flags in evidence on the field. The remains of 4th Brigade lay down their weapons in surrender. Union 3rd Brigade, the Hammer, fall back and are too close to the enemy to remove shaken markers. Brigadier General Lyon, seeing his plans in tatters, orders a general retreat of his army. So the battle ends there. I could have carried on for 1 or even possibly 2 more turns, but I think the result was inevitable. Had the 2 surrounded regiments of 4th Brigade carried on the fight, they would have been destroyed by far greater numbers. The 3rd Brigade, with 3 regiments shaken and little chance of removing the markers, would have lost at least 1 in the following turns. To take the Union Army 2 or beyond its breaking point of 7. All in all, a very enjoyable solo battle. Robert Lloyd's rules work really well. They had rather more elements on the field than he planned for, but it shows his rule set can easily be scaled up for the larger battles and still show individual regiments. I could have managed without any markers on the field, say perhaps the shaken markers. I used them for the purposes of this post in an attempt to show what was happening to anyone who was watching.